creating a parallel line through point P. So first we start with a given line and a given point P. If they didn't give you a point P and they just want you to construct a parallel line, well, go ahead and give yourself a point P somewhere on your paper. And step one is to take your straight edge and draw any line that you'd like that goes through point P that crosses the given line on your paper. So for example, I'm going to draw mine like that. I usually draw mine tilted this way. I don't like it quite so much when it's too vertical or too slanted. So that's my line through point P. No need to put arrows on the end of it because it's just a step in the middle of the construction. So what we do now is you take your compass and you put it on the intersection of where the line you drew crosses the given line. So put the center there and draw an arc, any size you'd like. Again, I wouldn't go too large or too small, and you need it to cross the line you drew and the line that was provided for you on your paper. Now use the same compass size, same size, don't change it, and go up to P, put your center on P, and draw a similar arc. However, the catch is here, see how they kind of look the same, we don't know how far down to go. So if in doubt, since we don't have the line yet, go too far, it'd be easier to go too far and you don't even have to erase it at that point in time, versus if you don't go far enough, you'll have to go back and try to match up the size again. So we have our two arcs. We first started from down here, drew an arc, then we went to P and drew the same arc. Now the arc you drew, the first one, should cross the line you drew along with the original line. And what we need to do is we need to put the center of our compass at one of those points and figure out the distance or what the radius should be to match the other point. So right about here, the center's at one, the pencil's at the other. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw an arc. And that's essentially just for proof that the measurement is actually lining up, that it actually goes through the point. And then leave your compass in that size for a moment. And go up to the top arc, the second arc you drew. And you're actually going to draw the same size arc. See how this part up here, those two arcs and the two arcs down here match. They look very, very similar. And we're almost done. You put a point where these two arcs up here cross, and that actually gives you your second point for drawing your parallel line. Connect that point to point P, and we have our parallel lines. Mark them parallel with some little arrow marks on them, parallel marks. And essentially what we've just done is created two angles that are congruent, that are the same measure, and by creating angles that are the same measure, we created lines that are parallel. To construct a line through point P that's perpendicular to another given line is very similar to constructing a perpendicular bisector, except for step one. Step one, instead of starting at the end points, because notice there aren't actually even any points on this line identified, let alone endpoints since it's a line, you start by putting the center of your compass on your point P. And you're going to draw an arc that crosses your line twice. Now I would suggest you not make it too small nor too large, but you put the center on P, you draw an arc that crosses your line twice. Now where it crosses is going to create some points. Right there and there. If your line's not long enough, just make your line longer, it's okay. Use a straight edge though, as you're making this construction. And now we're going to proceed just like we were making a perpendicular bisector. These are the 2 points. We're going to put the center of our compass on one of them, And again, you can change the compass size here. I usually like to make it a little bit smaller just to conserve some space on my paper. As long as it's more than halfway, you're good. Put your point, the center of your compass, on one of your points and draw an arc. And then using the same size that you just used, flip it over, put the center on the other point, and draw an arc. Again, we should be seeing this football shape in the middle, which should cross. If they don't cross, it means that either you picked too small of a compass size, or maybe you just didn't draw enough of your circle. You need to make your arc longer. And then a nice check here is that all three of these points should line up into one line. If they don't, then something happened. I made it a little off. Could have been that your compass slid as you were turning it. Could be just a bump in the paper. Lots of options there. But notice the line goes through P along with both ends of the football, which means we have now created a perpendicular line. Make sure you mark it 90 degrees that goes through point P. Here, there's no need to mark the congruent symbols on the left and the right side because we weren't trying to create a bisector. We were just creating a perpendicular line. How to construct a perpendicular bisector. Perpendicular bisector is one of my favorite constructions, and it starts by putting the center of your compass on one of the endpoints of your choice. And what you're going to do is you're going to draw an arc. And you want your compass to be large enough that it goes more than halfway to the other endpoint, but that it's not too large that it's going to go off your paper. And what you do is you draw an arc, around, usually about half a circle, from the center as the endpoint. Now what you do is you keep the same compass size, you flip your compass over, and you go from the other endpoint, and we're going to do the same sort of movement, a half circle. And what you should be getting here is some sort of shape in the middle. I call it kind of a football shape, where your two arcs cross at the top and the bottom. They cross up here, and they cross down here. Those 2 points will be 2 points on your new line. So you take your straight edge, you very carefully connect them. That is a perpendicular bisector. Now, if it needs to be a line, you can put arrows on the end. The markings, it's perpendicular, so you need your 90-degree marks, and you need congruent marks to show that the left and the right side are congruent. There's your perpendicular bisector.